The SVS Ultra Evolution Nano is a tiny speaker. It's got a 1-inch tweeter, a 5¼ woofer. It's got a frequency response of 44 Hz to 40 kHz. It measures just a hair over 12 inches high, 7.5 inches wide by 9.5 inches deep, and it's the speaker that this home theater package is based around. When SVS reached out via Secrets of Home Theater and, of course, Carlo, who's always looking out for me to get some really cool speaker packages in-house, their idea was to outfit me with the smallest home theater package because, as of late, I've been reviewing nothing but gigantic home theater packages that barely fit my tiny space. So I was excited to get a hold of this package because, well, it's high time that I got a reasonably sized package in my home, and when I saw the Ultra Evolution Nanos, I was excited because they looked to be a perfect speaker for my space that I can actually crank up and use to their fullest. And then I saw the size of the center channel. There is only one center channel in the Ultra Evolution series, and in comparison to the Nanos, it's gigantic. It's not a nano-sized speaker. This thing has a 1-inch tweeter, it has a 4.5-inch mid-range driver, and dual 6-inch woofers. The frequency response for this is 40 Hz to 40 kHz. It measures almost 8 inches high, it's 22 inches wide, and almost 12 inches deep. Joining this nano system is the SVS 3000 Micro, and they sent 2 of them. These things are delightfully small subwoofers that pack a ton of heat. They have active dual opposing 8-inch drivers, 800 watts RMS, 2500 watts peak amplifier power, frequency response of 23 to 240 Hz. It measures 10.9 inches high, 11 inches wide, and 10.7 inches deep. There are some basic controls on the back, or you can control it with the app. The app is absolutely wonderful, and I'll get to that in a moment, but for right now, I have 2 of the exact same subwoofer in my home backing up a compact-ish home theater system. And all I have to say is the wait was absolutely worth it. You could probably stop watching this video right now. Just go and buy it or audition it for yourself. I'm in love. I have been low-key stalking SVS and their product lineup for a few years now. There was a subwoofer, I forget the model number, but it was a 13-inch model that they released over a decade ago. And I had plans or illusions to get a subwoofer of that type in my former home, a much larger home, to put in the basement to help round out the bass in that space. But now in my current space, a much smaller condo, I did want an SVS subwoofer, but I was cautious because I don't have a ton of space here. And if I was to invest in a subwoofer for my very own purposes, I would have to find a place to put it when I was reviewing other gear. So I was taking baby steps at that, but when this package was offered, I jumped at it. And having dual SVS Micro 3000s or 3000 micros in-house for backing up this review, but then also being able to use those for my own purposes outside of the review to back up other speakers was kind of a boon. And so I shelved my plans to pick up an SVS of my own until right now when I'm filming this, because as soon as I film something, I realize that I have to start making plans to send said product back. Every time I have to send product back, it sucks, but maybe I should hang on to 1 or 2 of these subwoofers. Also, fortunately, I did end up building a small little shelf for behind my couch, for which I can place some books, my lamp, hide some cables, but then also be a default rear speaker stand for my surrounds. It's freed up a ton of space, and it's enabled me to stop using end tables that I was using previously, and it's a bit of a game changer for my compact little home theater setup here. And the Ultra Evolution Nanos fit perfectly on top of this shelf. I have towed them in towards my listening position, making them about 3 feet away from my ears if I sit dead center on the couch. The center speaker sits on top of my media unit, sandwiched between the Marantz Cinema 70 and whatever integrated amplifier I decided to have hooked up at the time. My front speakers are about 8 feet apart on either side of said media unit, about a foot away from the front wall. The integrated amplifiers used were the Advanced Paris MyConnect 250, the Marantz Model 50, and the Cambridge Evo 150. The 3000 micros bookend everything on either side of each speaker. On the right side, that's right before the kitchen. I am in a condo after all. And the other one on the left side, right up against my floor-to-ceiling windows and up against the sound panel, which is working as a de facto privacy screen because I am on the second floor. And if I move that sound panel, light streams through like no one's business. And you can see up my shorts if I'm sitting on the couch. If you want a full specification breakdown of all the speakers within this home theater system, I'll leave a link down below in the description. You could follow that to find out more about each individual speaker. But for this review, let's just start with the 3000 Micro. Now, that speaker is gorgeous, it's adorable, it is super compact, and the way it looks on the website is the way it looks in person. My review samples arrived in gloss white because everyone knows that I love me some white speakers. The drivers have a mesh grille that covers it, and it looks kind of like a donut, but it does look cool on this little speaker. I mentioned the app earlier, and it is a free download, and you download it to your phone, and then you can connect to each subwoofer via Bluetooth, and once you connect, you are never disconnected. Every single time I launch the app, unlike almost every other manufacturer, it doesn't take a second to load the subwoofer. It's instantaneous. I'm connected to the subwoofer. I can make whatever small adjustments that I choose to make. It's absolutely wonderful. I really do wish I was a bit more technically inclined, or at the very least, I had someone from SVS come in and set up both of these subwoofers in my space. I'm a bit more of a noob, and I don't quite understand all the parameters that are available within the app. Needless to say, I set a preset mode, a volume, and my cutoff, and I was off to the races, and I totally enjoyed these subwoofers the way I was using them. But the simple way that I am using them, when I do fire up a movie, all I have to do is open up the app and adjust the volume accordingly for each subwoofer, and I'm done. It's super easy. But should you be a bit more keen or technically inclined, you can dive into the app and tweak to your heart's content. The app is extremely user-friendly and easy to use. They say that having dual opposing drivers moving in perfect unison gives you amazing low-frequency output and the usable surface area of a larger single driver. And I tend to agree. The subwoofer's tight, it's punchy, it hits hard when I need it to hit hard, and at other times it's just very complementary to the proceedings. But within the app, you have variable tuning modes if you want them, a 3-band parametric EQ if you want, precise adjustments for boost, cut, or Q factor, tons of stuff. There's a USB port on the back, and you can use that to connect to the SoundPath wireless adapter. That adapter is a bit of a game changer. I owned 2 of those in the past, again in my former, much larger, much more wonderful home. And that adapter was the single biggest game changer for that space because it was a larger place and the subwoofer was a little bit further removed from the main receiver, and having that adapter connected, it says you need line of sight, but I had the subwoofer behind a couch with the receiver behind a couch, and it connected every single time. There was never any lag or drop off. It was perfect. And so if you're going to pick up anything and you're on a budget, consider the wireless adapter for your subwoofer. If you have a larger space, I highly recommend it. On the speaker front, they are available in white gloss like my review samples arrived in, also piano black gloss and black oak. If you are at all trepidatious about reflections, I would recommend the black oak to you. And on the white ones, the contrast is nice, the black on the white gloss, but I think it would look a little bit better with white or light drivers on these speakers, though I do recall Nick Brown saying, from SVS, saying that black piano gloss or piano black gloss is one of their highest sellers, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think that's what the majority of people, according to them, would most likely buy, so black drivers it is. The speakers are pretty tiny though. They barely cover the top plate on my speaker stands. The curved baffle on these speakers is set to time align the acoustic center of the tweeter and the woofer on a vertical plane, ensuring sound from each driver reaches your ears at the exact same time, maximizing phase coherence and a more convincing immersive soundstage with pinpoint accuracy and imaging. The tweeter itself is a diamond-coated aluminum dome tweeter. It's got a cool little organic cell lattice diffuser on top of it to protect it, and to also improve off-axis response or something. The driver is a glass fiber composite, and it's said to be really stiff. The center channel speaker has the same curved cabinet geometry, and I'm glad that they implemented this for the center speaker as well, because for home theater, it's kind of the most important speaker in my opinion. It's got the same aluminum dome tweeter and the same diffuser. This one's a 3-way crossover design. The mid-range and the main woofers are also glass fiber. And the woofers being somewhat larger than the Nano woofer makes a little bit of sense knowing that there is only one center channel within the Ultra Evolution lineup, so they need to engineer this one to match up against the much larger speakers within this range. This being home theater, the first movie that I put on was Into the Spider-Verse because the sound field is seemingly up all the time. This time, I decided to dial in my subwoofers because I initially had them in the movie setting and it was super loud, so I dialed them back to about -19. I think that's in decibels. Either way, the subwoofers were able to thump along with the movie without dominating the proceedings. The cool thing about these subs is they are incredibly inert, and in my room what that means is, compared to my B&W 610 that I hear a ton of cabinet resonance from, and also it just slides across my floor and I can hear it. These ones stay completely stationary, there's no cabinet resonance whatsoever, and yet they dig deeper, they punch harder than my 610 could ever hope to. Dialogue from the center is super crisp, really clear, and it has a ton of body to it. I set the crossover for the center channel lower than I usually would because I wanted to make use of the driver complement. With the frequency response down to 40 Hz, I set it at 60, and I think that's okay for my room. My room is on the smaller side. And for the rest of the speakers, I set them all at 80 initially, but then when I relooked at the specs, I was like, ooh, they go down to 44 Hz, supposedly. So I set the other speakers all to 60 as well, just because why not try to get the most out of these speakers? And again, I'm in a small room, so I don't think it could hurt these speakers too much. I rewatched that new Predator animated movie, Killer of Killers, on the system. I've watched it, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 times now. And on this package, it sounds amazing. That third act bullet, where it's the alien ship fighting against the prop planes and things are flying by, there's bullets and gunfire and things exploding and people dying. It all sounds super impactful, but also very immersive in this. I do tend to get lost when I am watching movies and I get fully immersed in it, and the sound helped me get there. It sounded really big, really full when things did blow up, and I did have the subwoofers turned up to I think about 21 and had the volume on the fruity side of things. I was fully engaged, fully immersed. My kids were terrified the entire time, but it sounded amazing. But then on the other end of the spectrum, The Vast of Night was also kind of immersive and really good sounding on this theater package. I liked having a larger center to reproduce all of the dialogue that was happening. It is a dialogue-heavy movie. And the surround is a little more subtle, but I did still feel completely immersed and engaged in what I was watching. And it was a really nice watch here. And then, of course, I watched SummerSlam Night 1 on this home theater package. Sorry to everyone out there, I love me some pro wrestling. And when Seth Rollins cashed in Money in the Bank and the crowd erupted, it sounded absolutely huge on this home theater package. I loved it to death. And oh my God, if you like live sporting events or pro wrestling, again, sorry, it sounds positively huge on this, and because the announcers take up so much space within the mix, they sound larger than life. What's his name? Not Michael Cole, but the other guy. I'm sorry, what's his name? The former pro wrestler, the big guy. Anyway, his voice sounds awesome on this speaker package, and I was just completely immersed all the time. But yeah, that cash-in was a thing of beauty. And as an aside, I completely fell for the injury. I thought it was 100% not a work, and they got me. Listening to multi-channel music on this package is also kind of awesome. I don't actually listen to properly decoded multi-channel music. What I do is I set the Marantz Cinema 70 into all speakers on, and that's how I take in said multi-channel music. And there is a podcast that I listen to fairly regularly. It's called Deep Breakfast, and it essentially every episode is different. It's a different artist featured, and they play whatever, chilled out ambient music, and it is great to listen to doing thought work for design jobs or doodles or even painting too. And I always find myself completely lost in the sound, and when I am running in gear, that's generally what I put on. I put on ambient music because the sound feel is seemingly up all the time. It tends to work in all speakers fairly evenly, and I find it works really well. And if you like ambient music and you like kind of zoning and vibing out to things, I highly recommend Deep Breakfast. I was, of course, listening to the ASC episode. I'm a huge ASC fan, and at certain times the synths take on a higher tinge. It doesn't ever get grating, but I do find myself either having to turn the volume or the bass output down on the subwoofers when bass kicks in a lot of these tracks, because it is long, droney bass a lot of the times, and I don't want to really piss off my neighbors during the day, so I find myself just notching it down a couple just so it sounds a little more palatable to my ears, but also to my neighbors in my condo complex. Disconnecting the subwoofers and going straight 2-channel out of these speakers via the Evo 150 was a bit of a revelation. These tiny speakers kick way harder than I thought they would. Playing Ordinary from Bungle, it's one of his newest releases, and there's a heavy, muted kick that just repeats all the way through that track, and it sounds really, really big coming out of these speakers, especially in my smaller room. The speaker feels like it is a much larger speaker. It almost feels like the much larger DB63s that I reviewed from ELAC or the Monitor Audio Bronze 7G that I just reviewed. They just sound big. And full credit to SVS for being able to squeeze this much low-end performance out of these tiny little speakers. These are truly speakers that I can confidently say do punch harder than their small size suggests. The key takeaway for me with this home theater package is my initial thought of taking a compact home theater package from SVS and pushing a little harder than I would maybe one of their larger packages, completely wrong. I don't think I got even close to the upper bound limits of this theater package whatsoever. These truly do punch harder than their weight, and I think that these would perform really well in a space even larger than mine. So if you are looking at this Ultra Evolution range and you were considering maybe one of the larger speakers, but also were curious about these nanos, I can confidently say that yeah, these would totally work in a space double the size of mine, maybe even triple, and maybe you'd be able to test out the upper bound limits of these speakers more than I can. But if you own the home, you could probably do more things like put ceiling speakers in and other things that I'm not able to do in the space that I'm renting right now without completely destroying the place and pissing off the landlord. In the future, when I do move to, again, a larger space and maybe I own it and I can tear apart the ceilings, I'm definitely going to reach out to SVS and see what solutions might be available for a home theater package, because I am really impressed by this one as much as I am almost any other home theater package that I've had in-house. These are wonderful. If I compare this against the Q-Acoustics 5010, a similarly sized speaker, the Nano is a bit more expansive and less directional while also sounding slightly larger. And against the Totem Loons, it's fairly close in width and scale, but it's also able to dig a heck of a lot deeper than that speaker can. It's actually quite surprising. Moving forward, I am now really curious about the rest of SVS's speaker lineup. These ones perform so well, I am curious to see how the other ones sound. And on the subwoofer front, I am curious now about the rest of their subwoofers, particularly like that 1000 Pro. How does that sound in comparison to what would potentially be my memory of the 3000 micros? Or do I just hang on to at least one of the micros because in my space, it kicked ass?